Well, hi, everybody. Steve Caton here with Altezza, and I'm super excited to have Pam Flannery with me today. Pam is actually one of our sales pros at Altezza, and she's been with us over a year, and she's been working with the client over a year. And, one of the things that we want to talk about occasionally when we interview both clients and sales pros is what are the kind of ingredients for success? How are we serving these small businesses successfully and helping them grow and accelerate sales? And sometimes it requires a lot of creativity to do that. And so Pam has been super creative in her approach to serving this client because the client didn't really have a very robust marketing strategy. There weren't a lot of inbound leads coming in. So in a lot of ways, we've had to create something out of nothing. And so that's not all that easy to do these days. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, right, Pam?
Yes, glad to be here
So,
with you.
yeah, thanks for being here for a few minutes with me this morning, Pam. I really appreciate it. So, let's talk a little bit about what you've done to try to create something out of nothing with this particular client. First of all, tell us your approach. Where are you finding people that are willing to have a conversation with you about the work that the client does?
Well, first of all, I don't want to do a plug here for HubSpot, but we definitely added that for this client because it was so needed. You can't, she had told me just work within LinkedIn Sales Nav, and as you know, that can be a challenge.
Yeah.
So we got HubSpot on, and then we linked all of that. And what I look for in LinkedIn is any activity that relates to that client. So I'm looking for the same industry. And so it could be that somebody was promoted, they've had recent growth, whatever that looks like. Then I go on to their page and I look for the decision makers. And usually I look for CEOs, executive leadership. There's a lot of executive director positions, but you have to look to say, no, that's not going to be a true decision maker. And from there, just reach out. Say, hey, I'd love to connect to see if we can provide value in that particular area. So give them kind of a hook. And if they do connect, whether they connect or whether they don't connect, the next follow-up they're going to get from me within probably about 5 to 7 days is a free e-kit. It has about a $30 value, but in order for them to receive that e-kit, I get their name, email, and phone number. And that links to HubSpot. So then I can follow up with them through a phone call or an email. Usually it's an email the next time, and then I can go in for a phone call after that.
Okay. Wow, there was a lot right there, Pam. So let me highlight some things that you said there. First of all, you mentioned LinkedIn, and then you're working exclusively in LinkedIn, and I think that's a key point. Sometimes we think that maybe cold calling is going to be a way to pursue new contacts or cold emailing, and there might be situations where that works. But in our experience at Altezza, the results of both of those approaches, cold email and cold calling, is so low that it's really not worth the time that you spend doing it. So LinkedIn is actually got a good high return on energy, right? Because people will respond, especially if you do it the right way. So first of all, LinkedIn is a great place to prospect. Secondly, this particular client really has a great understanding of their ideal client and who they are, what they look like. So being able to find those decision makers that you mentioned, Pam, I would imagine is easier because you understand what the ideal client looks like, right?
Correct. And I log into her account.
Yeah,
So acting as her and not
correct.
replacing, so that I go in and yeah, and then the follow-up messages that I kind of trickle through are going to be things that add value or spark questions. It could be, something that is very like, wow, I never thought of that. Or, yeah, that's a pain point for me currently. So we know the pain points of her, the industry that she's in. And so we're able to just talk about that and just maybe do a few lines and it sparks interest. Or it could be a video. She's very active on YouTube. And there's some that I'm just like, and they're short and to the point, and they're full of valuable information. So I make sure that I'm watching those daily or weekly whenever she posts those so that I know the content. And there's times when I go, I really want people to hear this because it's so vital. So then I'll take that and just say, hey, I'd love to share this. And then I come in as me, under her account and say who I am and working with her.
So do you, so what I hear there is that she's doing a lot of content production. So she's creating a lot of content, which then helps you be a resource as you reach out to these people on LinkedIn instead of just trying to sell them. And I know, Pam, how much aversion you have to being a high pressure salesperson. We've had that conversation many times. And so tell me how this approach gives you kind of comfort in terms of how you're reaching out so that you don't feel like you're that sleazy salesperson that you don't want to be.
Yeah. I've told you for years, Steve, I'm not a salesperson. I'm a
Yeah.
promoter of things I believe in. And that's, and I feel maybe it's the same. You always tell me it's the same, but I really believe in what she does. I believe that she's the best in the industry. And so it's easy for me to promote. It's like going to your favorite restaurant or a movie that was over the top. You want to tell everybody and you want to bring what was the value that you had that you know that they would have. And so I just share value because I am truly passionate that she is the best. Her content is the best. And whether they decide to go with her, whether they sign a contract with her, whether they just have a book signing with her, whatever that is, I think it's going to be a win getting the information to them because we're all about helping people, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's such a key point that you make there. And like you said, I've said this to you all the time. When you describe yourself as someone who promotes things they believe in, I tell you, well, that is sales. But sometimes, there are times when we're put in a situation where we're selling something that we don't believe in, and then it is hard, right? It is hard. So it matters for good salespeople like you, Pam. It matters that you care about what you're doing and believe in the product that you're selling. So that's clear that that's the case here. So you're adding value through content, and you're also building rapport. I know you're really good at building rapport. Again, trying to make sure that it doesn't feel too salesy. And so, tell me how you're doing that.
Well, there's one thing that I want to mention that it has proven to be pretty effective is I've gone back to some of our previous clients and said, would you share a quote? Would you be a reference partner? And
Hmm.
that's something she didn't have in place. And so now we have a reference partner program. And so depending on what that particular prospect needs, like they may send a message back and say, I'm looking for such and such. Well, I can look at those quotes from previous clients and go, this would be perfect because they're going to be able to hear it from somebody who actually had the experience with working with her. And so then I take that quote and share that with it. And I'll say something like, I want to share this quote because it's always good to have a third party share, firsthand. And then I obviously just rave about her because I believe in what she does. And share how she can add value to them. But I do look for their pay. I ask them, what are your pain points? What are some goals? How do you want to get from good to great?
Yeah.
Um, what are those pain points? Because people don't care how much we know, and she knows a lot until they know how much we care. And so we really do care.
That's awesome. That's a that's a tweetable quote right there, right? People don't want to know how much we know; they want to know how much we care. And so, drawing people out and with those great questions that you're asking, I think that's so distinctive from just launching into a sales pitch. And how many times do you see that? I'm sure you see that on LinkedIn. I see it all the time. It's like someone makes a connection, you agree to take the connection, and then the first thing they do is try to sell you something, right?
Happens to me all the time. It's annoying.
It
I
really
just,
is.
yeah, because I'm like, I don't know you, you don't know me. We don't have any relationship. It's almost, yeah, it is. It's annoying to be honest.
Yeah. So Pam, I love, the way that you do it is the way that we want to do it at Altezza with all of our clients. If we're doing anything on LinkedIn, and that is, build relationship, establish rapport and credibility, and then resource them. And then if there's an interest, if there's a need, they're going to naturally want to engage in a conversation, right?
Right. And I
Yeah.
would say that if your clients do have content, whether it's a book, whether it's an ebook, whether it's whatever it is, find those nuggets that would be really helpful and quote that and just say, if you're interested in hearing more, here's a link, put that link in there so that they can access, whether it's, purchasing it through a company because it's a book, or whether it's a link to that ebook or YouTube video or whatever. But content is important. It really is.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to do what you're doing if you don't have content to work with, right? Because one of the things that's true about LinkedIn is if you reach out, and I know you're reaching out, as you said, as the client, if you're reaching out, the first thing many people are going to do is check out the profile and see what kind of things are in the feed. Well, if there's no content in the feed, then there's not going to be much to work with there. So, yeah, having the content is super important, and that allows you to both resource the prospect, but it also allows the prospect to see, oh, this is a credible person with a reputation who's creating a lot of content that actually speaks to the problems that we experience.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
true. And I think it's important too to have quotes from previous clients. Put that on LinkedIn.
Oh, yeah.
And what people are saying about us because it's relatability.
Yeah.
We can promote ourselves all we want, but it's much better when others talk about us.
Yeah, absolutely. Which, brought up one of the other things you brought up that I think is worth revisiting is that idea of reaching out to past and current clients, not just for the quotes, which are amazing, but also for potential referrals, right? Because sometimes those people, when we have a conversation with them and we just ask the question, hey, this has been a really great conversation. I'd love to have more conversations like this with people that you know who we might be able to help. They'll oftentimes make those introductions, right?
Yes, and if you can tell there's a hesitation, they're not sure, they don't have complete buy-in, I'll ask them, "Would you like me to connect you with one of our, I don't call them reference partners to them, that's what we use kind of in-house, but would you like me to connect you with the previous client?" And so I match them up with somebody who's going to be the best fit and have them have that conversation. So I'll introduce them through email, they'll connect, they'll have that honest conversations. And obviously it's people who've had a great experience and want to promote this particular client.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Pam, this has been like super helpful. I mean, really, in what, 10 minutes or so, you've given people a lot to think about, whether it's a small business owner who's thinking about how can I prospect in today's kind of, social media driven world. And for salespeople who are wondering, how do I create something out of nothing? It is possible if you do it the right way. And you've just done a fantastic job, Pam. So thank you so much for serving this client as well as you have, and just being a person who cares about serving more than selling.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks. One thing I want to add too is when you do get on the calls, just listen, ask questions, get to know them. What do they do in the company? Sometimes you don't want to ask personal questions, and I get that, but what do you do? How long have you been with the company? What kind of impact has your company made? Let them talk because you're going to hear the pain points sometimes even in those conversations. And you can reiterate that by saying, "Hey, what I'm hearing you say is that pretty accurate? And if so, then you know what to provide for them."
Yeah, that's great. Well, and that we can underscore that with something that we say around Altezza a lot, Pam, and you've heard me say this many times, which is be interested, not interesting, right?
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Pam. Really appreciate your time. I know this will be helpful for those who get to hear it. And yeah, keep doing a great job.
Aw, thanks. Have a great day.
You too.